In the hills of Bethlehem, among the fields where the wind blows strong and the smell of wet soil marks the beginning of the harvest, lives a man named Eliab, the firstborn of Jesse. Eliab grew up carrying the weight of responsibility and the expectations of everyone around him. Strong, imposing, with a steady gaze and the posture of a warrior, he was the kind of man who turned heads just by walking by. If someone asked who would be the next great leader of Israel, well, everyone pointed to him. Eliab had everything the world values: appearance, presence, and position. He was the eldest brother of a large family, respected and perhaps even feared, but on the day the prophet Samuel entered his house to anoint the next king, something surprising happened. Something no one expected, because God looked beyond appearances. And the crown that everyone imagined would rest on Eliab's head ended up in the hands of the forgotten youngest, a frail boy named David. And there, in the silence of that room, begins one of the most striking turns in biblical history. A story that exposes the human heart, reveals the contrast between pride and purpose, and shows how not everyone who seems prepared is actually ready. Today, we are going to dive into the intense and often overlooked journey of Eliab, the man who lived in the shadow of divine choice, a story of wounded pride, identity conflict, and the pain of watching the blessing pass right in front of his eyes, without touching him. After all, what happens to the one who isn't chosen? Get ready to find. Imagine the scene. The people of Israel are in a time of transition. King Saul, who seemed like the ideal guy, tall, handsome, strong, no longer has God's favor. And now? The Lord decides to raise up a new king, someone after his own heart. That's when the prophet Samuel enters the story, with a divine mission to go to the house of a man named Jesse, in Bethlehem, because there, the future king of Israel would be found. Jesse's house had many sons. And the first to step forward? Eliab, man. Picture a guy who made a strong impression at first sight. Tall, strong, with a striking presence and a confident gaze. If he walked into a room, everyone would notice. He had that kind of energy that made it seem like he was born to lead. Samuel, looking at him, almost rushed into a conclusion: this has to be the one. But then, God whispers into the prophet's heart, "Do not look at his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him." The Lord does not see as man sees. Man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. 1 Samuel 16:7. Wow. It was like a cold shower. And look, that wasn't just a wake-up call for Samuel. It was a deep cut to Eliab's pride. Just imagine, he grew up as the oldest, the example, the one who always led the way in decisions. He was probably the warrior of the family, respected by his brothers, maybe even seen as the chosen one in his own home. And now, in the most anticipated moment, God simply says no? That leaves a mark. That hurts. And Eliab felt it. But wait, the story doesn't end there. After God rejected all the other brothers, Samuel asks if there's anyone else. And then, as if it were a forgotten detail, the father mentions the youngest. Oh, there's still David. He's out there taking care of the sheep. David? The youngest? The one nobody even thought to call for the ceremony? Well, God loves to flip the script. And when David walks in, the Spirit of the Lord confirms, this is the one. Rise and anoint him. And there, right before Eliab's eyes, his younger brother, maybe sweaty, smelling like the field, and wearing simple clothes, is anointed as the future king of Israel. A mix of shock, disbelief, and perhaps a hint of envy begins to grow in Eliab's heart. And do you know when that wound starts to show? Sometime later, during the battle against the Philistines, David goes to visit his brothers at the war camp, bringing bread, cheese, and supplies. But when he gets there and starts asking questions about the giant Goliath, Eliab explodes. Why did you come down here? And with whom did you leave those few sheep in the wilderness? I know your pride and the wickedness of your heart. You came down only to watch the battle. 1 Samuel 17:28. You know what that sounds like? Resentment, built-up frustration. That pain of being rejected, mixed with the anger of seeing the brother, who seemed so small, now gaining space and even daring to ask about a battle that he, the warrior, hadn't yet faced. But here's the most powerful part of Eliab's story. He became a symbol of something we all face, the clash between appearance and purpose. Eliab had everything the world values on the outside. If it were today, he'd probably be the guy with the perfect social media profile, good looks, great connections, strong, charismatic, but he lacked the one thing God values above all, a heart aligned with him. And do you know what the impact of that is? The greatest king of Israel turned out to be the brother he had underestimated. Eliab teaches us, even without many lines or notable deeds, that God is not impressed by labels, stature, or reputation. God doesn't look at the external, he searches for hearts that are broken, available, obedient. By the way, there's no record of Eliab ever changing that heart. Maybe he lived in the shadow of his brother's success. Maybe he remained stuck in his bitterness. Or who knows, maybe at some point, he came to terms with it all. The Bible doesn't give us the answer. But the silence about his future already says a lot. Sometimes, the loudest noise comes from what remains unsaid. The truth is, we all have a bit of Eliab inside us. How many times have we felt we deserved something? How many times have we seen someone else be chosen in our place and thought it was unfair? That we were more prepared, more qualified, more experienced, but God doesn't choose based on our logic. And when he rejects one path, it's because he has something much greater prepared. It's not always to exalt us, sometimes, it's to teach us, so the next time you feel like you are being overlooked, remember Eliab. Maybe God is teaching you that it's still time to adjust your heart, and who knows? What seems like rejection today may just be the beginning of a deeper, more intimate, more genuine restart with God. So, did you enjoy this striking Bible story, even without much spotlight? If you did, comment below what touched you the most, and share this with someone who needs to hear that appearance will never surpass purpose.